Okay, let's take a look at how to set up a custom calculator in Excel/Google Sheets. And we'll start with kind of the most basic, simple statistics out there, our good old summary statistics. These are your measures of center, measures of spread, and measures of relative standing is also a measure, summary stat, but we'll look at those later. Just center and spread for these, because those are the most basic ones. In any case, the number one thing you want to kind of think about when you're creating these calculators, and I'm just going to say Google Sheets from now on, and just know that it's the same in both. Or if I say Excel, I mean both. They're interchangeable. So the nice thing about using Google Sheets is that it can do repetitive tasks very efficiently. We don't want to have to calculate the mean of one set of data and then redo all over again when we have a new set of data. We would kind of like that computation to just automatically adjust with our new set of data. And if we take some forethought and set up our spreadsheet in an efficient way, it will do that for us. And it just means you need to know some stuff about how these functions, these pre-built functions in Excel and Google Sheets work. So for instance, if you want to calculate the mean of something, you're going to type in equals, and I wish they did mean, but they don't, average, right? So if I start typing AV, it comes up with all of these options. And I'm just going to choose average. Now you'll see that it automatically wants to put in what it thinks the location of my data is, C2 to C33. And if I wanted to say, hey, I want the average of just these numbers over here, I could highlight those numbers, and then you can see that it's A2 through A31. But then what's going to happen is the next time I paste data over there, if the data size is different, like next time I have 45 pieces of data, I'm going to have to go in here and I'm going to have to adjust it and make it go A2 all the way down to A46 and so on and so forth. That's a pain in the butt. We want to avoid that. So instead of saying, give me this specific range, if we just click on the letter A, it puts in A:A. We also could have just typed that in. And now it's going to give me the average of everything in column A. So no matter how big or how small my new set of data is, as long as I just paste it into column A and make sure that I delete all the previous, numbers first, it will always then readjust to the new average. And then we do the same thing for all of our other functions. So you can see that getting a median is just equals median, and again it's A:A, and that gives me the median of the data in column A. For standard deviation, there's a lot of different versions, right? So if you start typing ST for standard deviation, you get StatDev, which was kind of the old school way that they made their functions. And they realized, hey, there's a different formula for if our standard deviation data is from a population or from a sample. So let's do .p for population, .s for a sample. So we're going to do .s because, this is a sample. It's very rare that we ever have a population of data. And then variance is the same thing. It's got equal var.s or var.p. We're going to do the .s version. And then you've got min, the min function, max, and then range. What? There's no equals range. No, there isn't. To do range, we just have to realize that range is simply max minus min. So we type in equals. We click on the cell that contains the value for max, minus. Click on min, and there's our range. The last summary stat we have is mode or modes, and there are a lot of different functions for mode. We're going to want to use the one that does multiple modes. So you'll notice that there's just regular mode, multi-mode, and single mode. We always want multi-mode. The only problem with multi-mode is if your data has more than one mode, it's going to list it in this column. It's going to continue. So it put 13, and it put another number here, another number there, and so on and so forth. So for instance, if I come over here and I go, all right, let's give myself another 16. You'll see now I have two modes, 13 and 16. And if I'm like, you know what, I'm going to give myself another 5. There's 5, 13, and 16. So if you put this function, right, because remember the function is written here in this cell, and then the bottom ones just get filled in because of having more than one mode. If I'd put that function over here in this cell, then all of a sudden these two cells would get filled in with 13 and 16, and I would lose the standard deviation and variance functions that are in that spot. So you kind of want to keep the mode either in the bottom of your list or just keep it separate. I like to keep it separate because I might want to come along and add more things to here later. Maybe I want to add in some quartiles and some percentiles and some other measures of relative standing. So I think it's nice to just keep the mode separate, and then no matter what our data is, we don't have to worry about it. Okay, now let me show you how cool this is as far as it will reset to a new question. So now I have a new question that's coming up. So I'm going to have some new data. So I'm just going to click on A to highlight the whole column and hit delete. And you'll see that these all go to these weird, thing going, hey, our function doesn't work anymore. There's an error because it's trying to divide by 0 because there's nothing there. But then I get this new question, and I only have this much data. So I'm going to highlight my new table of data, Control C, come over here, click in the first cell, Control V. There's my new set of data, and you'll notice that everything adjusted automatically. I can double click. See if I put my cursor in between and it changes to this shape, and then I double click. It auto sizes the column to make it wide enough to show the largest number, and this one was really, really big. So we can now go back to that question, and they want it rounded to 2 decimal places, so I can highlight all of my data, or I can even just click on C and do the entire column, and up here decrease until I have 2 decimal places for all of them. So that's another nice thing that helps us make sure that we're displaying the data that we want to display it in, so that when we go to put our answers into WAMAP or whatever we're using, we don't have to worry about manually rounding. It does it for me, right? So there's my mean. You can see that's the same number, right? There's my median. Right? There's the same number. Here's my mode. Well, I only had one mode. So there's that answer. And then if it asks for the others, we'd put the others in. Okay. Now let me show you another trick to why this is such a helpful, handy tool. The next part of this question says, hey, get rid of the CEO salary and rerun the data. So we need to get rid of the 272,500. So I can just come over here and just delete. And you see how everything adjusted? And now it's just a matter of filling these in with the new adjusted versions, which you can see match, match, and match. And that's the beauty of setting it up this way, is that all you got to do is delete this data out, paste your new set of data in, and you'll have all of your summary stats instantly. Now, yes, if you have the data analysis tool pack, you can run the summary stats function in there. Or if you have one of the statistical extensions, the Excel minor analysis tool pack, that also has a summary stat tool. But I think it's easier to just set up manually, and then you don't have to, go and do these tool pack things. Plus, if you do it this way, right, typing in these little functions with the equal sign, you get better at working with Excel and Google Sheets. And a lot of employers out there, across a lot of different fields, different careers, want their employees to be able to use spreadsheets, know the basics of it. So this is going to help you with those kinds of things. Now, the last example I want to go through is doing a weighted mean. That's our last measure of a center that's a little bit more complex. So let's say we have this simple set of data, and they want us to find the average score for the employee. And we're doing a weighted average where here are the scores, they're calling them ratings, and then here is the weight. So, an employee is being evaluated on different types of things. So they got a score on all of these different categories, but some categories are more important than others. Obviously, these bottom four are much more important than the top, right? Because they have much bigger weights. So if somebody did really poorly in these and really well in those, if we just took the average of their rating, it would make them seem better than they were, because for this job or whatever we're looking at, these things are more important, so they have higher weights. It's just like, your grade in any kind of class, where, of course, the final exam is going to be worth more than just a homework assignment. So it's going to have a larger weight. So you don't just take the average of your final and your homework. You have to weight them by how much they're worth. The final's worth 20% of your grade, and maybe homework's only worth 10. Those kinds of things. Well, this is how you do it. It's a very simple process. You just have to take the score, multiply it by the weight, add all those things together, and then divide by the total of the weights, which is usually always 100, because you're usually doing out of 100%. But it doesn't have to be. But it normally is almost always that. So let's see how we can get Excel to do this math for us, so we don't have to sit there with a calculator and go 2 times 2 and 2 times 2 and 4 times 6 and all that, and then add them all up and have all these places where we could make mistakes. So instead, here's my data, paste it in here. I know the pattern is I need this number times this number, so that's simply going to be equals. And it already, in Google Sheets, it's already kind of AI and learning smartness that, hey, there's two numbers next to me. You probably want to do something with those two numbers. But you could also just go, well, I don't want this. But if you do, you would hit tab. But you would click on the first thing, asterisk for multiplication, click on the second one, hit equals, and now we've defined that. If we now put our cursor in the lower right-hand corner where it turns into a little black X, click and drag, it's going to repeat that pattern. So for instance, if we click in this cell, we can see up here that it's taking L9 times N9 because we're in the 9th row, right? So it's taking L times N. So there's all those things. Now all we got to do is sum them up. That's really easy. Over here, there's a little function where we can click on sum. And so this is kind of like a most used thing. So if you click on here, it kind of brings up the most common. But you could also just type in equals SU, and oh, yep, there it is. I want sum. And I want those, so I'm going to highlight those. There's my sum. And then I also want the sum of all my weights. So again, if I just grab the corner and drag it over here, it's now going to sum up everything in that column. Like I said, it should be 100. And then our weighted average, right, is always simply just the sum of all of these products, right? So each score times its weight. Add those all together, and then divide it by the total of the weights. So it's going to equal this number divided by this number, and there it is. 2.38 is our actual average, and you can see 2.38 is the answer we need. All right, so that's how we can do all of our summary statistics very easily in Excel or Google Sheets.